Get ready for some Karen stories that need to learn how to respect your property. Our first one's called Housing Cooperative Ticks Me Off, posted by some account 89235. I'm living in a block of flats with slightly higher standards, meaning we have a gate and our own parking spaces, trash cans, camera system, and everything. I work as a programmer and remotely. I'm also single and I keep mostly to myself. I try to never harm anyone, not get into any drama, just live slowly and steadily alone, barely leaving home except for doing groceries, so my neighbors know me as that homeowner that never causes any problems and is always helpful and polite. One time, I had to replace my current bed. It was old and dirty and I just wanted something better. So I ordered a new bed and dismantled my old one, ready to be taken out. Once every 2 weeks, a truck comes in and checks through the neighborhood to take away all of the big things set beside the trash containers. That day was tomorrow. Sadly, I live on floor 3, so taking my old bed alone would be just too hard for me to do by myself. I asked my brother for help, but he couldn't have done it tomorrow, so he helped today. Now, before this, our block's terms of service say that you are not allowed to put out big trash except on the day that the truck comes. So, not wanting to make any outburst, I asked my favorite neighbor for a favor. If I could put it on his parking spot the day before, because, well, I wouldn't be able to do it on the correct day. He gave me a thumbs up, and then I checked with another member of the Housing Cooperative Board if it's fine, since the owner of the spot knows. He also said it's okay for him. So I moved on with the plan. My brother came in, we moved my old bed outside, occupied the spot, we called it a day. That's when the Karen came in. She's around 50 plus years old from looks. You know, the type that sits all day in the window and tries to find something to complain about. So she got into my home and tried to explain that it's against our community rules, so I had to have it taken away right now. I, in exchange, tried to explain to her why I did that, how I got approval from people and whatnot. She was not having it. She threatened to call the police on me for littering if I didn't get it done today. I said, sure, okay, guess I am technically in the wrong here, so I'll just comply. I called a private company to take away the bed today. I also specifically went to her home and told her that it would be done today, and she said it's fine. So the truck arrives and they start taking away the bed, and so does the police. Apparently, she already did call the police without waiting for me to do anything. I am livid and I'm literally panicking, not because I was afraid of a fine or anything, but just because it was the first time in my life that someone did something hostile for me, even though I said I'd do what she wants. I explained the whole situation. The police see no problem, they don't even cite me anything. They just give me a handshake, pat me on the back, and they leave. The lady that called the police looks out the window and yells, "Thank you, officers," with a grin. I am ever more upset at this point. I think to myself, you want to perfectly obey the law? Fine, I'll make sure you do. I got the community rules from the council and I studied them thoroughly to find potential reasons to make her life heck. I see her taking out the trash. I clearly hear glass bottles in the bag, and I look out the window. She throws it in the wrong container. I call the community board. Bam! Your rent went up because you don't comply with our sorting garbage rules. The next day I come back from groceries and I see her car. She parked a little over the line, so it's basically like taking up 2 spaces. I call the police. Bam! She gets a fine. She walks out her dog in the private space as I watch her through the window. I see her dog going, but she doesn't scoop it up. Oh, did you just do that? I call a community board with a complaint. She came to me and wanted to apologize. Now, here's the part that makes me look bad. I said, no, I don't accept it. Why? Because, I'll admit, I am vindictive to people who try to create trouble for others without a very good reason. I said, all I'm doing is making sure you are following the community rules. Is that wrong? And she scoffed at me, something rude, and went away. I've been doing that for like 3 months now. A month ago, she was kicked off the board for too many rules violations. Today, she moved out, but before she did, she made sure to put a bag of trash on my doorstep while I was away. Sad for her, she's stupid and the trash contained a letter with her information on it. So I had the last laugh by reporting it to the police. I know, rules are rules, and I was technically in the wrong first for breaking them. But the moment she went out of her way to enforce them and then screw me anyway, that's when the line was crossed. I have no shame for bullying her out of here. I was just doing God's work and ensuring that the rules are not broken. You want the house? Okay, good luck at the renovation. Posted by Throwaway 1914-07. This happened in the year 2015. This is the long story short of the already long story. My grandmother on my father's side died in 2007, bless her soul. She owned a house and a lot of bungalow type stuff near the sea. Now this house wasn't paid in full, and there's still a remaining balance of about $5,200 in US dollars, which this is already big money for us. Because my father is the only son, his older sisters agreed that he should get the house. There was no will, but he should pay the remaining balance. We lived there and we renovated the house. Well, my father did almost 75% of the work. I mean, he added 2 bedrooms, he did a ceiling and furniture, he even added another bathroom and tiled the floors, kitchen sink and septic tank. There was no drainage system on that location. So basically, we received the house in bare shape. We paid fully in 2015, but we didn't receive the title. There was just so many excuses. 2016 comes. His nephew is a retired commander, and he visited my parents and told my father that he wants to add a second floor so he and his wife could live there also. My father didn't agree, and he called his older sister if they want that to happen. They just said that they don't want to get involved. His nephew showed him that he already had the title of the house. I don't know how he did that. Maybe he used his political background. I'm not sure. So my father was furious. He called me and told me what had happened. By that time, I had already bought a small patch of land for them when they want to retire, but I'm still saving enough money to build a house suitable for their needs. There were court battles that I will not include, but in the end, his nephew won. But there was an agreement that he has to pay my father $7,400. He mailed us the contract that we should vacate the house after 6 months, and there was a specific item that our lawyer pointed out. A, we should repaint the house, no specific color, and B, leave the house in the original state. Guess what? We hired a construction team to demolish the bedroom, the bathroom, remove the ceiling, the kitchen sink, tiled floor, and also the septic tank, leaving it in the original state. We spent about $2,800 including the labor. The cherry on top, we painted the house with black inside and red outside with violet dots. It was a huge eyesore. I was bombarded with lots of calls and messages from my aunts and cousin, which I did not reply. We went no contact after that. My parents now live in a beautiful farmhouse, tending their small garden. They enjoy morning walks by the lake, just living a stress-free environment. They're planning to adopt a puppy next month. Maybe you're wondering if $5,000 is a small amount of money. I didn't include that the title was pawned to someone, not a family member. We got our money back because we have receipts proving that we paid the remaining balance. I think this is late, but I think I had made errors in computing our currency into dollar. The judge ruled that, besides the remaining balance that we had paid, we should also get paid with the renovation expense. Investor wants to buy my house way over market value. Sure, no problem. Posted by DodoHead974. Background. My parents and their neighbor bought homes in an up-and-coming part of Florida 20 years ago. We're talking half-acre lots with 2,500 square foot homes for like $130,000. Our neighbor's home was a little smaller than my parents', no pool, and over the 20 years, the only thing done to the house was a new roof. Nothing else had been changed. Everything was still the original. Appliances, the paint, the AC unit, cabinets, tile, and carpet. I wish I could say that she took care of it and never needed to change things, but that wasn't the case. Or neighbor's house looked 20 years old. Well, she is a widow and the house is huge for just her, so she decided to sell and take advantage of the market. She listed it for $400,000. Despite never having put a penny into it, the house goes onto a bidding war, and the top bidder is an investor from California. She offers to pay $30,000 over asking, pay the closing cost, and can do it the same day. Cue malicious compliance. The investor woman had two stipulations. Our neighbor takes the house off the market immediately, and she turns over the key to her management company with the cash for the home held in escrow until the key was turned over and our neighbor's side of the paperwork done. Now, our neighbor was upfront with this woman and the state of her home and asked if she wanted to have her management company come to look at it first. The woman says, "No, I'm renting the house and it doesn't need to be painted, just pull it off the market." This woman essentially bought the home for about $450,000 when it was all said and done. So our neighbor immediately goes to the management company office with her realtor, signs the paperwork, hands over the key, and gets the check for the home. A few days later, our neighbor gets a call from the investor lady. She is irate. The house is in disarray. It needs a paint job ASAP, new appliances and flooring at the least. She demands that our neighbor paint the house. She won't take ownership of the home until that is done. To which our neighbor responds to her, "It's not my home anymore. It was signed over to you and that check handed to me and cleared. That house is no longer my problem. Enjoy." This story all came about because yesterday my parents called our old neighbor. There was a for sale sign on the house again, and we were confused. Our old neighbor promptly showed up and told us the story, and we are all laughing hysterically because the woman has it listed for $430,000, which anyone with eyes to tour it would never pay. And even if she did get it, she'd still be losing a crap ton of money. Who doesn't love a story when greedy investors trying to inflate the market lose and lose big? Sounds like she got a little greedy and it came back to bite her in the butt. Oh, it would suck to be that investor right now, wouldn't it? What would you do if you were OP? This crazy Karen story is called "Ignore the Red Lights and Cones at Your Peril," posted by Sevendori Native. About a decade ago, while I was waiting for my current department to hire, I took a job with a private EMS company as an EMTI on a fast response motorcycle unit, contracted out to our local freeway agency for accident response. It was an okay gig. Long hours and riding 300 plus kilometers every day killed my love of biking, but it beat the heck out of working on an ambulance. The same agency also staffed pickups with safety crews for the purpose of lane closures and scene safety. While we were a quasi-governmental unit, we had no real authority outside of that allowed to us by the Fire Brigade Services Act, and often had motorists ignore our suggestions when it came to not driving through accident scenes. This meant the police units still had to smack peepees occasionally, and it was usually quite fun to watch. I had the pleasure of working the same stretch of freeway as a certain Metro Police motor unit, and I watched him screw with people a few times, and two specific times come to mind. The first time I saw this salty old bugger use his power of craphousery was after a multi-vehicle pileup just after an aggressive bend in the freeway that closed down 3 of the 4 lanes of traffic, causing a line of cars that stretched for a few kilometers back around the bend, meaning that cars at the rear could not see what was causing the delay up front. A number of drivers decided that they were too important to wait and drove up the hard shoulder, half on the road and half on the grass, to mosey on by the accident scene, leaving the rule-abiding drivers to sit in the hot sun looking at us with dismay. After a few of them snuck by, nearly hitting crews who were busy treating patients and almost taking out a recovery vehicle, this absolute stud of a man got fed up and moved his bike into the shoulder, but in such a way that they weren't able to see him. Every car he stopped got told to park up and wait while he waited for his next victim. After he collected about a gaggle of 20 of them, he slowly made his way up the line, ticket book in hand, to have an unhurried chat with each driver individually. Not only did I get to watch each idiot eat an almighty fine for leaving the roadway and ignoring emergency vehicles, they also had the pleasure of sitting there as the scene was cleared before being allowed back into traffic, turning a 20-minute delay into nearly an hour of baking in the noonday sun. There was much gnashing of teeth and mutterings of, "Don't you have anything better to do, officer?" While that was pretty funny to me, the best I saw of him was a few months later when we got a call for a scrap metal hauler that was quite impressively overloaded that had managed to roll over while on the 2-lane overpass connecting the same national freeway to the city freeway that led into the industrial area south of the city center. This thing must have been pushing 40,000 kilograms when it wedged itself, nose against the right-hand concrete barrier and tail digging a deep gouge into the counterpart barrier on the left. This meant that there wasn't a ball hair on either side of the truck, and traffic was diverted at the entrance to the overpass, about 500 meters up from the scene. I didn't technically need to be there at this point, as the driver had been taken to the hospital and the road was closed, awaiting the arrival of 2 heavy rigs to lift and recover the truck and the contents. I was leaning on my Suzuki, perving over to this officer's BMW R1200 RT when we noticed that the crew of the safety unit at the closure was having difficulty with a vehicle that seemed to think they were above the law and were aggressively trying to get by the pickup, the cones, and the angry men in reflective gear. Seeing this and the potential for injury, he told them to wave the car through. As it zoomed down and then up to us on the top of the overpass, he winked at me, and when they stopped behind the very heavy and very wedged truck, he wandered over to have a chat with the driver, who was apparently the spokeswoman for the force-strong irritation of Karens within. The crux of his chat with her was that he certainly understood their point about needing to get to their highly important destination, but that the road that they had elected to use was currently blocked by 40 tons of mangled steel, and he was sure that they would agree that it would be dangerous for her to drive back against the traffic, considering that we had heavy rigs and support vehicles arriving and setting up. He apologized for the inconvenience, but directed them to park up by our bikes and wait for the rigs to do their thing, after which we could all be on our merry way. It took about an hour to get the road clear, after which they most definitely weren't making eye contact and appeared like beaten dogs as he finally wished them safe travels on their way. HOA demands ownership of my property, but I'm not even in the HOA. Click the video on your screen, you don't want to miss the crazy fallout of this one, and I will see you there.